Okay, here we go. Welcome in, everybody, to Happy Hour. We are presented by our friends at Bet365. NFL Week 15 starting up Thursday night when the Chargers and the Raiders face off. We will get to that. Tim Kalinowski is to my left. I'm Brendan Glasheen. Trying to do that virtually is always a challenge. Hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm good, Glash. How are you? It's another week in the NFL. Here we go. More quarterbacks hurt. Teams that are lucky, teams that are unlucky. It's a lot of the same stories. Just insert the teams and figure out how we can get an edge and how we can make some money.
Yeah, it keeps getting darker earlier in the day, too, which is not great on the East Coast. And it gets darker, yes, at quarterback in the NFL. That is for sure. Coming up on the show, we've got Sean Kerner to break down injuries in the NFL on the rocks with Koerner. That's coming up. And we're joined by our Director of Research and Media, Evan Abrams. We play a game of trivia. The bar trivia host, Evan Abrams, may stump us again. We'll find out. And then we've got Stucky and Raybon joining us for Mix in a Water. As I said before, our friends at Bet365 are the presenting sponsors of Happy Hour. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, here winnings, and even parlays. They don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why. It's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only or 18 plus in Kentucky, present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, and Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Iowa, 1-800-BETS-OFF. T's and C's and restrictions apply. Before we get to Nick Giffin momentarily, he's got a bone to pick with us, that's for sure, based on last week's show. Who's on notice for you this week, Tim? Who is catching your attention? A team, a player, a coach, somebody that's kind of driving you nuts when they should be peaking at the right time before the season concludes?
Yeah, it's the Green Bay Packers for me. This team is so damn confusing. I mean, I like watching Jordan Love. I think he's, I had my doubts about him, I'll be honest, but his athleticism, it's infatuating to watch, but then they just have times where it looks like old Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, offensively organized Green Bay Packers. And then it's just, they go win 3 in a row. And 2 of these wins, especially, nothing to scoff at. You go upset the Lions on Thanksgiving as big underdogs. You beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and then you lose to this. I get it. They got the DeVito magic, but you can't lose to this when that team, the Giants, I mean, God bless them, but it's a show. They're barely playing football. It's a show at this point. The Packers should be meaning business, and they lose. And so now I'm scratching my head as they are 3.5 point favorites hosting Tampa Bay this weekend.
Yeah, so one of the teams that they beat, I think Green Bay is going to be okay. One of the youngest teams in the league, Jordan Love. There's going to be ups and downs. Like Christian Watson, of course, gets hurt after one of his best games, didn't play in the Giants game Monday night. The Detroit Lions are on watch. They're 9-4, having a great year. But that's what happens to people in Detroit, I feel like. They're having a great season. We saw this in some years with Stafford. Their hearts just get sunk at certain points in the year. So they've been okay. They beat the Saints a few weeks ago. Disappointing result against the Bears on the road. The Bears, who have been playing better. We got to be fair. The Bears have been better despite the record. Justin Fields is coming into his own. But now you got a test here in Denver. At home, in your building. Denver is a night game, too. It's a night spot for the Lions this coming weekend. They've got a good running game. Jared Goff has been erratic, taking care of the football. So they've got to get it right. In the run game, up front, Amon-Ra St. Brown, if you're a fantasy owner of him, he's probably let you down lately. So are the Lions a contender for the playoffs? Yes. Are they for real? Can they win a playoff game? It's a good spot for them to figure it out. And Denver, of course, has been one of the hottest teams in the league. So I've got the Lions on notice. Dan Campbell, all of a sudden now, is a co-favorite to win Coach of the Year. He's no longer the number one guy to win the Coach of the Year award. D'Amico Ryans is sneaking up on him. A lot of candidates now. I think Steichen in Indianapolis has caught up to him. Sean Payton is somebody else. Stefanski in Cleveland. So these other stories. You've been healthy at quarterback all year with Jared Goff. You got to get him right. So I guess it's Jared Goff and the Lions. I call out Jared Goff even more because he has the binky Sean Payton in his ear until the 15-second count before the snap. figures it out. Now you're on notice. You're a good team. Get it together. All right. We got Nick Giffin here standing by to get into the Action Network Luck Rankings. Here is the explainer for those of you new to the show. The Luck Rankings allow our analysts to grade teams on what's called luck percentage, which is the difference between expected and actual win percentage. Unlucky teams are often undervalued week to week when there's a large luck disparity between them and their opponents. Okay, Nick's here on camera, but Nick, it went well for you last week. Let's roll the tape on what happened last Thursday.
I do like the over here in this one, especially if it ticks down to 29.5. But if it's at 30, still like the over.
I don't think you're right, and I don't want to think you're right because of this game. I can't watch this.
Why? But I want to know why.
It's like when you're in college and everyone sucks so bad that they have to put a curve. There's a curve on the grade at the end of the day. Oh, well, you know, with the curve, you actually get a B+ and it helps your resume and you can get into the school you want to get into. You're really going to put yourself through this.
Yeah, of course. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this one.
You think this over hits in like midway third quarter?
Yeah, I revised that to early fourth quarter. But somewhere in that range. Somewhere in that
Very
range.
good.
I don't want to
Very
get
good.
too hot takey, but
Okay. Well, as it turns out, the over in Patriots-Steelers Thursday, that show was Wednesday night, the day before. That hit in the first half. So, Nick, your hunch was correct. Couple of clowns and Nick Giffin are part of our predictive analytics team. What do you have to say to us after a week has gone by?
Feel really good about that one, not gonna lie. But I did convince Tim to get on the over with me by the end of it. So Tim, congratulations on hitting that bet.
Thank you. Thank you. I did one of the most disgusting things possible last weekend. I teased the Patriots Steelers over with the Army Navy over. And I know we don't tease overs. We don't tease the college football, but they were both so low, and it was, a parlay for my weekend and, rooting for points and two pretty, hard to watch, four pretty hard to watch offenses. So Nick, you convinced me. Hats off to you. You were right. I was wrong, but listen, you can't blame me because no one listens to their doctor, Nick. No one does.
That's true. That's true. But, we got another interesting spot this week, you guys. Thursday night football, once again, is a luck over. This one, of course, I know. This one, of course, between
I'm not saying a word.
The Los Angeles Chargers
I'm listening,
and
doctor.
the Las Vegas Raiders. Right now, around 34.5. There's actually opened a little bit higher than that, got pushed all the way down to 33, has since come back up to 34.5. But this has a luck total of plus 5.2. Mm-hmm. Don't need to remind you, except I will, that luck totals of plus 5 or more after week 11 are 34, 18, and 1 to the over. 65% over the last 6 years, including 4-1 to the over this year and 3-0 on prime time, including 2 Thursday night games, the other being a Monday night football game, and of course last week's victory lapping Thursday night football over. Over 75% of the tickets and the money have come in on the under so far. So just like last week, might be another chance to fade the public. If we look at each of these teams' last 3 games combined, they've averaged 8.8 points scored in each of their last 3, right? So 6 total games, 3 offensive games for Las Vegas, 3 for the Chargers. And defensively, they've allowed 16.3 points per game. That's in comparison to 13.3 expected to be scored offensively for these offenses. So a difference of 4.5 to that 8.8, and allowing 20.3. So a difference of 4 there to that 16.3. So that's 8.5 points below expectation per game combined for these teams over each of their last 3. So we're sitting in a spot where everybody's down on them because points have not been scored in these games involving these teams. But the expectation says at least more than a touchdown should have been scored in these games on average. We kind of replay them over and over and over again. So that's the reason, one of the reasons that this is a luck over. But we really need to talk about the quarterbacks in this one, because that's the big story, of course.
I'm glad you said it, Nick, because, I'm glad I'm so much Glash and I are closer to this Patriots thing. So last week, it's like, we kind of just like wanted them to suffer for, making us have to watch them all year. But these quarterbacks, we have no connection to these quarterbacks. I guess Jimmy G. But
and quickly, Nick, the other thing too is like we know the book on Trubisky. We kind of knew the book on Zappy. He hasn't really had a fair shake to start, but he's been in the league a couple years. These two, Easton Stick and Aiden O'Connell, maybe the guy they do start. I know you're going to get into that, but there's a little more unknown here. You can admit that, right?
I mean, Aiden O'Connell and Bailey Zappi have probably played around the same amount. So
that's fair.
It would really be Easton Stick, right?
Right.
But so Easton Stick at quarterback for the Chargers. Honestly, I don't think it really impacts the total here because the market's adjusted for it, right? I mean, if this game was Justin Herbert still, this would be closer, maybe not apt, but closer to 40 points. And so the fact that it's down at 34.5 or so is obviously a big adjustment there. So not too worried about that side of things. There's been an adjustment there. But on Las Vegas's side, just today, Antonio Pierce, head coach for the Raiders, said no decision's been made, but all three quarterbacks are in play. All three being, of course, Aiden O'Connell, potentially early season starter Jimmy Garoppolo, but also Brian Hoyer. And it sounds like they could be leaning towards Brian Hoyer, but that's why I'm not betting the over right now, because Brian Hoyer is terrible. He has a 4.45 adjusted net yards per attempt since his age 33 season, and he's 38 now, so he hasn't been good for a long time. Hoyer, let's talk about Aiden O'Connell, right? Aiden O'Connell offenses averaged 15.5 points per game in his starts this year. Hoyer hasn't had a game where he both started and finished crack 15 points since October 8th of 2017. That's over 6 years ago. The last time Brian Hoyer started and finished a game that his team had at least 15 points. Now, there were 2 games he started that did crack 15 points, but in both of them, he got replaced for being absolutely terrible. One of them in New England, where Bailey Zappi replaced him, and
Green Bay
was scoring 24 points.
Green Bay. And that's when I think Hoyer got the concussion in that game. That's what happened to him. So
but he was terrible before that anyway.
I know he was.
It wasn't going well.
And then CJ Beathard replaced him in San Francisco. Again, when Hoyer was abysmal. And also San Francisco scored 24 points in that game, but it wasn't because of Brian Hoyer. Earlier this year, Aiden O'Connell replaced him in a game, and Hoyer led the Raiders to just 3 points. Aiden O'Connell, the Raiders offense scored 9 points in the final quarter there. So if you're getting outperformed by Aiden O'Connell, Bailey Zappi, and CJ Beathard, I don't know what that says. So that's why I'm not betting the over right now, because if Hoyer becomes a starter, this number should drop. And then if it drops enough to adjust, we can take the over. But there's no way I'm taking the over right now, and then Hoyer gets announced as the starter, and then it's like, darn. So just kind of have to wait the quarterback situation out on this one before we do anything.
So they matched up, these two teams, Chargers, Raiders, week 4. Herbert was the guy still. Total finished at 41, 24-17. If I remember correctly, go in the luck direction here. The Raiders had opportunities to score in this game, and Aiden O'Connell, being just a young buck out there, was turning the ball over and not making great decisions. So you'd think at this stage, if it's O'Connell and you got Easton Stick on the other side with some still pretty darn solid weapons there in Los Angeles. Does that do you ever look at that at all? Do you look at when they play? I mean, it's week 4. I know there's not much to glean from that. I would not think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not reading into it too much. Not a single game, right? We want to look at the aggregate of all the games and,
sure,
adjusting for quarterbacks and things like that. But this is just a spot where over the course of the season, these two teams have combined to have totals lower than expected. So that's why this is a luck over.
Okay. And I'll just jump in and say, Nick, you obviously are, numbers based, right? That's how we do this. We try and take our emotions out of it, but it's pretty funny that it takes Brian Hoyer for you to look at your all the numbers, see what lights up, and say, actually, not so fast. It would take Brian Hoyer for you to have some trepidation. So, Brian Hoyer scares just about everybody. Okay, even when you try and take the emotion out of things. But
and the difference between last week and this week, we knew the quarterbacks going into that game, right? Not in terms like we don't have a monster sample size on Bailey Zappi, but we knew he was going to be the starter. We knew Trubisky was going to be the starter. We don't yet know who's going to be the starter for the Raiders, which is why I can't take a position on this game yet.
Gotcha. But you do have some other ideas about some games on this board. What's next?
Yeah, let's go real quick away from the totals. Let's go to a luck matchup. We have the New York Giants against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are the unlucky team in this matchup with a luck difference of 25 and a luck gap of 29.6%. Doesn't quite reach our 30% threshold to have some crazy splits here. So we're just going to have to go with the 24 place difference or more trends here. And, unlucky teams with luck difference of at least 24 places are 55, 37, and 4 against the spread. That's just under 60% over the last 6 years. However, if they're a home team, which the Saints are, it's just 27, 24, and 2, which is 52.8%. That barely covers a minus 110 on each side here. So we're not really betting this one. Super weak signal, especially knowing we look this past weekend and I know, Green Bay Packers were one of the on-notice teams. The Packers actually got lucky to only lose by 2. Our expected score had them losing.
I agree.
Even more than that. So the Giants were actually a little unlucky, and New Orleans was a bit lucky against Carolina. Should have been a little closer than expected, not much. So you get a spot where the trends aren't really there, and the luck is not in our favor from a recency bias perspective. I'm just going to avoid New Orleans versus New York Giants in terms of luck being a deciding factor on which side to take here.
Okay, very good. And then you've got over the last 2 weeks on the Thursday night prime time, but 2 luck unders you've identified.
We got 3 luck unders, but
3.
sort of. Yeah, so the first one I do like, but
3.
The totals come down pretty far, and that's the New York Jets versus the Miami Dolphins. This game has a luck total of minus 6.9. Luck totals below minus 5, we say are luck unders. But especially this late in the year, if they're between minus 5 and minus 7, that's the sweet spot. These games are almost 65% to the under, 19, 10, and 1 to the under after week 11 over the last 6 years. And I think it's a good spot to maybe consider the under here as well. We have Zach Wilson, who's just coming off actually a very good game, which, we would expect maybe Zach Wilson to regress, I should say, to Zach Wilson's mean a little more. And Miami, of course, pretty banged up. I know Sean's going to talk about it in the On the Rock segment, but of course, Tyreek Hill banged up with the ankle injury, which could limit his mobility, big play ability, especially, which would impact the total. And then center Connor Williams out for the season with a knee injury. It's going to be a big impact. He's much better than their backup there. And we saw it right away. I mean, botched handoff, snap, whatever, botched snap and fumbled.
Exchange.
And then Tua picked it up. Yeah, exchange. And then Tua picked it up and fumbled it again. So, I definitely think that's going to be a big impact to this Miami offense as well. So impacting the Miami offense is going to have a lot more impact than impacting the Jets offense. So definitely think the under is in play here. Real quick, I'm going to rapid fire these last 2. We got 2 more luck unders. They kind of fit the same trend, but they're not really unders. And that's because both for Chicago versus Cleveland and Washington versus Los Angeles Rams, the other LA team, we have luck totals that are below minus 7.5. So Chicago, Cleveland, luck total of minus 8.2. Washington versus LA, luck total of minus 9. When we're this late into the season again, after week 11, if the luck total is below minus 7.5, we get almost a reverse signal where maybe these teams really are just putting up points and allowing points more than expectation, even more than we can have captured in our expected scores. The over when the luck total is below minus 7.5 is actually 21 and 13. That's over 60% to the over. So we might have a couple reverse trends here between Chicago and Cleveland and Washington and the LA Rams.
Can I ask you a quick question from the YouTube chat? Someone asked, can luck rankings be used on historical data? Like, can you rank the luckiest teams for the last 10 years?
Yes, absolutely. And we have that for at least the last 6 years. I remember we were saying earlier in the year, week 9, week 10, Pittsburgh was the luckiest team in the last 6 years after week 9 or after week 10. So yeah, absolutely, we can do that.
Well done. Hey, Glash, unless you have a follow-up, I have one more question. I'm sorry.
I'm good. I think I'm good. I feel good about this.
The idea that once it's beyond 7.5, you just kind of tip the cap. Is that so? Did you find that out like the hard way? Because if you were early in this, modeling process, it'd be like, hey, surefire. This is a big standard deviation.
Luckily, we did not
this.
find it out the hard way. We created this. So we had luck rankings last year, but that was our initial pass through. And then we revised them this offseason to add more years worth of historical data and update the methodology. And before the year started, I wanted to make sure I looked at every possible trend I could. And I happened to notice that when it's this late in the season, and I was like, oh man, this late in the season, if it's like 9, 10, 11, negative 9, 10, 11, that's got to be crazy for the under. And so I plotted a graph of it, and it's like, yeah, if you go from -5, 6, 7, you're good. But then that like 7 to 7.5 range kind of plateaus. And then when you go beyond 7.5, it goes back to the over. So just kind of happened to notice the trend preseason, thankfully.
All right, I got one more for you. Did you like the clowns in our faces? Did you enjoy that?
Yes, I love that. In our Action Network Slack, I definitely had to put the 2 clowns and the nerd emoji face next to each other because
it's good.
That's what happened. Plus, the Patriots covered, right? That was a very strong luck trend as well. Last week was the Patriots covering. So no major super strong trends this week that I've played yet. Definitely interested in that Jets Dolphins under. And am interested in this over once we know the quarterback situation.
Okay.
Nick, sorry, gosh, this guy's head's not going to fit through the door the way we've just gassed him up, the last segment here. Too much for me. I'm begging for mercy. I'm begging for mercy.
You're all right, Tim. You're all right. We recorded that Bad Beats video. You got it all out then.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, Nick. Thank you very much, as always. Nick Giffin of our Predictive Analytics team. So
Anytime,
long,
guys.
friend. All right.
How about Sean Kerner? This guy's pretty smart. We go Nick Giffin to Sean Kerner. He's going to talk to us about some notable injuries, just to name a few. It's been that kind of year in the NFL. Justin Herbert out for the season. Finger. He said, this guy, the finger, every other week we're talking about Justin Herbert's finger, and now he's out for the season. Tyreek Hill, he had something to say about his ankle injury that kept him, in and out of that Monday night game. And also CJ Stroud, one of the great stories to start this NFL season, not looking good in the concussion protocol. Sad to see. Tank Dell, CJ Stroud, this was an exciting team to watch. I'm interested to talk and, get Koerner's ear about these things because, I also at the end want to ask about Justin Jefferson, but that's for later on. That's for later on. Koerner, start us off with Justin Herbert. We talked probably way too much about Easton Stick to start this show. What does this mean for the Chargers, and not just that they might be starting fresh next season with a new head coaching staff?
Yeah, so Justin Herbert is a top 10 quarterback, and there's never too much Easton Stick talk. So let's talk about him. He's a below average backup quarterback. So that's about a 6-point drop off for the Chargers going from Herbert to Stick. And last week was actually the first time we've seen Stick play extensive action in the regular season. He had his moments. He connected on 2 straight deep balls to Quentin Johnson. But other than that, he was pretty erratic, which is what we've seen in his 4 full preseasons now. In his preseason games, he's averaged just 5.4 yards per attempt, and just an absolutely horrific 4 touchdown and 8 interception ratio. That is truly awful. He does have some pretty good rushing upside, which was interesting because he didn't scramble at all last week. But I think with a week to kind of plan on him starting, I think we'll see some plays where he's going to use his legs a bit more. That's kind of how he can overcome some of his inefficiencies as a passer. But this injury could end up costing the Chargers more than 6 points going forward because Ian Allen's been playing through injury. There's no real reason to be using Austin Eckler as extensively the rest of the season. So we might see them give some of these veterans breathers, limit their workload a little bit. So it's something that could actually cost them more than the 6 points. And we'll see, Keenan Allen's banged up. He's questionable for tomorrow night. We'll see if he plays. But I think down the road, now that their season's pretty much lost, we could see them, start to shut down these key players as well.
Yeah, and he had a nice throw to Quentin Johnson in the second half. I know DeBundo gave out Denver second half money line. That's before we found out Herbert was out for the remainder of the game. I think that's when they made that call. So you could have got Denver plus money second half last week, but then when Stick made that throw to Quentin Johnson, I'm like, oh boy, this could be in trouble. So he did have that deep strike in that game. Next at hand is a fella down in Miami. It's a lesson to all of us. Just listen to your wife. Take it away, Tyreek Hill.
My first reaction was like, man, my ankle gone. Then my adrenaline kicked in. I ran off the field. And then I sat for a while and got stiff. I was just going through a lot of pain, man. So then I just made up in my mind. I came in at halftime. I texted my wife. I was like, bro, like, this shit hurt. Like, need an ankle massage tonight. She was like, you better get your ass back in that game, dog. I was like, all right. So I just made up my mind that it's going to hurt. It's going to suck tomorrow morning, tonight and tomorrow morning, and I just went back in the game on my own. Without anybody saying, Reek, go. Like, nah, it was like, fuck this. I gotta get out there, and bring some energy and be that spark. So.
The good old suck it up, get back out there. So it's a good lesson, a good life lesson that you should listen. And a happy wife is a happy life. That's how they say it, Koerner. Where are you at on Tyreek Hill and his status after hearing that and just when you crunch the numbers?
Tyreek Hill is one of the most valuable non-quarterbacks in the league. He's probably worth 2 to 2.5 points against the spread. And we saw just how valuable he is. When he left the game, the Dolphins offense stalled quite a bit. And have to imagine if he was in there on that final drive, they probably would have been able to get down the field and attempt a game-winning field goal against the Titans. So not only does he make a ton of big plays, he just opens things up for Jalen Waddle and the running game. It might be easier to stop both of them if he's not there. So I think it's a big deal if he weren't able to suit up this week. However, they are facing the Jets at home. So they'll probably still be able to beat them even without Tyreek. And it might make sense to actually rest him and make sure he's 100% for the final 3 games because they have an absolute brutal schedule. They face the Cowboys, Ravens, and Bills to close the season. So I think if they can, you might want to rest him here, sneak by against the Jets and make sure he's 100%. And, if he was fully healthy, I think the Dolphins would probably be -10 right now. And the fact that they're, -8.5, -9 hints that, he might not play, or even if he does, he might be somewhat limited.
Yeah, we saw that line too. With this whole, that was a pretty good whistle by me. And also,
didn't really hear it.
Oh, did you not? Well, I also
No.
had to change on the fly my headphones because my AirPods died. So pretty good on the fly change there by me. Tyreek Hill though, the fantasy owners, I mean, it's tough timing.
Yeah.
Across the board. Even that's a great call on Eckler too. Just knowing the status of their team, they're being out of it. You might have a new staff come in. You want to protect the prized possessions at all costs. So Eckler's another one too, just on the theme, Tim, of just bringing guys like that up.
But what I wonder if those guys have incentives though, where they're like, hey, I want to keep playing. So, I don't know that. That's something I have. So I didn't take the time to dive into Chargers incentives, but someone I am concerned about is CJ Stroud, as you're wearing the Texans hat here. Quarterbacks this season, just 2 off the top of my head. Anthony Richardson earlier this season, Jimmy Garoppolo. They went into the concussion protocol and they did not return immediately the next game, the immediate next game. It took them till the following week to return. There's been some changes to the NFL's concussion protocol. All that to say, what's that mean for us in trying to make some money as they are dogs to the Tennessee Titans this week?
Yeah, so, CJ Stroud has already established himself as one of the better quarterbacks in the league as a rookie. He ranks inside the top 5, top 10 in most key quarterback metrics. So if he were to miss, it's going to be Davis Mills who takes over. And he was the starter for the Texans most of the last season. He ranked outside of the top 30, top 35 in most QB metrics. So I think it's going to be around a 5.5 to 6 point drop off if Stroud is out. And if Stroud were active and ready to play, the Texans would be -3 right now, probably right around there.
Yep.
So the fact that the Titans are at -2.5, -3 at most books, They're basically assuming that CJ Stroud is going to be ruled out here, is what I'm thinking. And, to make matters worse, Tank Dell's already out for the season. But, Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz are both questionable. If one or both of those guys are ruled out, we could see this go, up to, Tennessee -3.5, get across that key number. So they still have to, hope those two guys are able to suit up. And, Davis Mills, he's probably an above average quarterback and a below average starter. But either way, Stroud has proven himself to be worth, that 5 to 6 point drop off here.
So are you depth chart diving right now to have a prop play on this game? I know you by Sunday or Saturday, you'll come up with something.
Oh, absolutely. It's too soon to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe like someone like Derrick Henry will see a bigger workload because
there it is.
The Texans won't be able to run up the score. So it could be a good Derrick Henry game, things like that. But it's too soon to tell. Although if you look at the market is basically assuming that CJ Stroud is out. I kind of said this last week when Cleveland went up to -3.5. I was like, look, Trevor Lawrence hasn't been ruled out yet. If he suits up, this is going to go back below 3. That's what happened. They ended up covering anyway. But regardless, it does look like the market is basically assuming that CJ Stroud is out this week.
Oh, I don't know if I was gonna, but the Jags, I immediately took the Jags +3.5 after our conversation. And I felt like I was getting, a nice little free roll here. It's announced he's playing. The line goes back through 3. I'm like, Koerner, I love this guy. And, of course, all that work for nothing,
nothing beats some good closing line value that doesn't pan out. There was an opportunity to kind of lock in, if the Browns win by 3 exactly, we win both bets, but that was unfortunate how it panned out.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll give credit to Nick Giffin off camera here. He mentioned that Derek Carr did return after in the same week as a concussion, or within 6-7 days, if you will. I mentioned Garoppolo and Anthony Richardson did not. Someone that did return, not from a concussion, but from a hamstring, is Justin Jefferson. We're playing all the hits from last week, I guess. You said, hey, if you have Justin Jefferson, you're playing him. And, it wasn't the hamstring that knocked him out of the game. It was a brutal, hit across the middle of the field. Yeah. And so are we doing this again? If you have Justin Jefferson, you play him?
You got it. If he's playing, you got to play him. I mean, how stupid would you feel if Justin Jefferson goes off on your bench? And I was saying, you got to play him last week. I downgraded him. He was like, wide receiver 15 for me. So we had to lower expectations. I would be more concerned if he left the game due to his lingering hamstring injury. Right. But the fact this was a completely different injury, I mean, he got rocked there. It was Josh Dobbs' fault for leading him into the defender there. But the fact that it was a different injury means it's probably less likely we're going to have an in-game setback. So I don't think you sit him because you think he's at risk of an in-game injury. He might be no more at risk than any other receiver. We'll have to see, how he's feeling at the end of the week. But if you have Justin Jefferson and he's playing, you have to play him.
Fair enough. So much of fantasy is making decisions that you can live with, even if they go poorly. Yes. And I think you've summed it up well with you can't lose in the on your bench because you thought something could happen.
Exactly.
Well, that'll do it. Clash, any more questions for Koerner while we have him on the stand here?
Nope, I think I'm good. Koerner, thank you as always. Great job. Right. I'm looking forward to Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning when you cook up something for. Well, you'll have something Thursday too. But yes. I always look forward to the Action Network pushes and the free to download Action Network app from Sean Kerner. He's on it Saturdays and first thing Sunday. And Saturday, more importantly, because there's games Saturday. I didn't even think of that. So yeah, Saturday, very important. So Friday for crying out loud. But he's always active in the Action app. So thank you, Koerner, for your time as always.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
All right, some notable line movement into NFL Week 15. Miami laying 8.5 points as opposed to 13.5 points. We know Tyreek Hill's a bit banged up. He's been vocal about that. The family as well, about Tyreek getting into action for the Miami Dolphins. And the Jets are coming off an outright win against the Texans. 63% of the bets are on the Jets to cover at 8.5, but the money's also coming in on New York. And what do you know? The under is getting attention in this game too. maybe the chance of a Fail Mary once again when these teams played on Black Friday. We bring in our friend Evan Abrams, the director of research and media at Action Network. Okay, Evan, before we get started on your top shelf trends, chat, be ready, YouTube chat. What is our bar trivia question of the week? What do you have for us?
Yeah, so forget specific team stuff. It's Raiders, Chargers. We shouldn't even really be talking too much about this game. So overall trivia. So this season, 3 starts minimum. Name the only NFL quarterback to not cover the spread. That's all I'm asking. It's simple. One quarterback has made 3 starts or more and not covered the spread. I want you to name that man.
I want to say I just read the thing. I thought it was going to be 3 quarterbacks that have not covered. So that helps me a lot.
Man. Yeah, just one man. Okay. So one man, chat, do your thing. Let's get into this. So I guess we do have to start with Thursday Night Football. And if you start with Thursday Night Football, you talk about Easton Stick. Gets a start for the Chargers with Justin Herbert now out for the year. Now, Mr. Stick will be just the 4th different starting quarterback for the Chargers since 2006. The fewest of any team in that span. Think about that. 4 quarterbacks since 2006, 3 entering this week. So aside from Phil Rivers and Justin Herbert, it was only Tyrod Taylor who started 1 game for them. So been a long, long time since they've had to go through this, but their season seems like it's probably over and time to turn the page. So see how that goes. Now, let me keep going a little bit, then we can react.
Please.
So we had 8 backup quarterbacks start last week. Now, I have my own, grading system when it comes to backups. So like last week, Bailey Zappi, not a backup. Belichick's choosing to start Zappi over Jones doesn't make him a backup anymore, but Trubisky with Pickett hurt, backup. So we had 8 backups last week. Now we've got Stick, Mullins, Browning, Trubisky, Minshew, Flacco, DeVito, Zach Wilson. We've got 8 backups definitely this week. Now Stroud could turn into Mills. Gino could turn into Locke. So if we have more than 8 backups, it would be the most we've had in 10 years in a non-week 17, 18. So long, long time since it's been this bad. It's worth noting these backup quarterbacks, 68 and 94 straight up, as you could imagine, but 88, 69, and 5 against the spread since the start of last season. So usually don't win the game, but they tend to kind of sneak into that back door, cover the number. And lastly, before we have reaction, everyone's question they're going to have, right? So speaking of quarterbacks, we've had 54 start entering week 15 this week. Now the record is 87, but forget that. That was done in the strike impacted 87 season. The real record is 67. That was done last year, which broke the 2007 record of 64. So right now, we would still need 13 more quarterbacks to start to tie last year's record. Obviously, a lot can happen, and week 17, 18 get really weird, but that's where we are, fellas.
I'm just interested in how you do your classifications of a backup quarterback. That suck does not equal backup. It's a little more subjective.
Well, it's injury and choice is the way I look at it, right? Like, because backup gets really, really hairy. And in my, what is a backup quarterback? Is it someone who just wasn't starting week 1? I think that isn't right as well, because I think coaching decisions kind of come into it. Like Aiden O'Connell, not a backup quarterback anymore. Like they've chosen him to start over Jimmy Garoppolo. Right. Now this week, Antonio Pierce already can't make a decision. So why is a backup quarterback when you have 3 who aren't a starter? So it's kind of the way I look at it. But again, very subjective, but got to grade it somehow, guys.
Watch this, Glash. Talk about backup quarterbacks. Watch this. I'll be right back. Watch this.
Thanks.
I don't know what's happening.
All right. Well, we might as well hit Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, please.
Look at this. Look at this. Easton Stick. It's my Easton.
Very
there
nice.
I honestly wasn't going to even give him the joke. I was I was trying to move the segment along because, if you give Tim too much, he takes the rope.
My Easton Stick. There you go.
Carrie Underwood used to do the Sunday night song, the anthem, to kind of set up the game. And she would mention that, she's got that song with the Louisville Slugger. She should do a remake with the Easton Stick,
That's good.
She's married to a hockey player too.
See,
really?
That's creative.
Who?
Fisher, whatever. He used to play for the Predators. I forget his first name.
Oh, all
Yeah.
right. Anyway, let's talk about Thursday night. We've been delaying
Yeah.
that.
Raiders played 10 night games at home in Las Vegas since they moved there. They're 5 and
course they
5 straight up, but 7 and 3 against the spread. That's 7 and 3, Mark. Second best in the NFL behind just the Eagles. And look at that. Eagles playing Monday Night Football this week. So you've got two really good ATS teams kind of meeting up there. But I'll give you one more, and this is the fun one. So the Vikings coming off a road game in Vegas last week. Teams, after playing the Raiders on the road in Las Vegas, 10 and 20 against the spread since 2020. Second worst mark in the NFL. The other one you watch out for, teams after playing Atlanta in Atlanta, 8, 20 and 1 against the spread. It's been even worse if you go back. So those are like the two, coming off places that doesn't really turn well for teams.
I can't.
And they're laying 3 against the Chargers, and they didn't even score against the Vikings last game.
That's a good one. See, okay, I'm going to look that up. Teams to not score. How many do you think have been like a favorite the following? Like probably not a lot.
Patriots certainly don't count because that's happened to them a few times this year.
All right, trivia. Back to the stuff. So minimum 3 starts. Name the only NFL quarterback to not cover the spread this season. And then I got a fun nugget for you on it after. But trivia, who do you got?
Bosh, do you have an idea?
No, because I keep I think I have a name, but I'm worried about the 3 starts thing.
You got it. I have a list here, so give it to me.
I am too. I'll help you with this. The person has 3 names.
It's not. So he's 1 and 2 against the spread. Great try.
Dorian Thompson-Robinson was
correct.
Who I was thinking of.
1 and 2 ATS. He's on my list of close. So that was a close one. Correct. Anything else, guys? I know the chat's already got it because they're smarter than this.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
I'm going to give you a hint after a while, but I can't yet. I need another guess at least.
It's not Tim Boyle, right?
So it's not. He's the other close one. 0 and 2.
See, that's what I mean. I think these guys I'm thinking of have got, because I know Flacco's is a topic of conversation, but he's not there yet either. God damn it. I don't think Trubisky started 3 games. No.
Hint.
Okay, hint.
DeVito? Oh, so he's Tommy DeVito.
No.
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones.
No, DeVito just won.
That's why I was confused, Glass. You painted
Daniel Jones is 0-6 against the spread this season. He will not start another game. So the question is, last 20 years, he is one of 4 quarterbacks to finish a season 0-6 ATS or worse. So 2023 Daniel Jones 0-6. 2016 Jared Goff went 0-7. 2007 Steve McNair 0-6. 2003 Rich Gannon 0-7. So there's your list, boys.
I want to say about Daniel Jones, it came across my mind, but I thought because of all the New York whining pre Tommy DeVito being good, that it was like, if Daniel Jones was here, things would be better. Like that was kind of why I had. And look, it could be covers as an underdog, but that's why I was like, there's no way things were actually going well. It's amazing how long the NFL season can.
Well, Daniel Jones 0 covers. Tommy DeVito, star in the making.
You guys watched that real quick. That Netflix documentary that came out, they featured Cousins, Mahomes, and Mariota. If they do this, I think they're going to do it again because it was a hit. How they pick these injured quarterbacks. Like I would love to know how Daniel Jones feels about the Giants getting better. Mac Jones and how Bailey Zappi just got a victory for Belichick and the Patriots. Like I'm sure these starters that now their teams are starting to put it together and play a little bit better without them. They must be like, what the? It must be so.
It's a good point. It's a good point because I thought it sucked. The first one, but yeah, I mean, I hope it gets better.
I believe they're going to use a wide receiver, but they should really use Tommy DeVito, Zach Wilson, and Josh Allen, and just
Tommy DeVito. They could make a Disney movie on Tommy DeVito, like
a Christmas.
See that one?
Christmas Tale. It should call it that. Yeah, there you go. It's a Bronx Tale. That's a Bronx Tale too.
Evan Abrams, our director of research and media, he kind of stumped us. We got the question right last week, but he kind of stumped us. He helped us get there. So Thank you, Mr. Trivia host, and have a great holiday season. It gets busy this time of year at the establishment.
Yeah. I'll see you next week.
Okay.
Just a reminder that Happy Hour is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than anyone else. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 100% bets off in Iowa. T's and C's and restrictions apply. Make sure you stick around for Sunday Six Pack immediately following us here on Action Network's YouTube page. I think you just give it a refresh or something like that. I don't know. I talk to, Raybon during the week here and there, so I get a sense of his picks beforehand. So, I'm not totally, hanging on the edge of my seat. But Stucky, I do. I go back and look at it the next day. I'm lucky enough, Glash and I are lucky enough that we get him right now as a little bit of a teaser to tell us who needs to mix in a water. We'll start with...
Well, Tim, wait a second. So there's an Action Pro account that people can subscribe to. Do you have a Pro Raybon account that you get that access, or how does that work?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, look, I have the app and I have the notifications on. I think Raybon got a couple bets in earlier this week. That's my version of talking to him. That's what the app does. That's what the app does. It brings
so you're not
together.
actually friends. You just steal his shit from his page. Got it.
Yeah, because I do a little back and forth thing with him on Thursdays, and I like to know what he's on. And then I go back and watch the Six Pack and see what Stucky is on, and I'm like, which one can I cherry pick from Stucky for our show? That's and that's not plagiarizing. That's the whole point of this company and the brand and the app is sharing of picks. So anyway, speaking of sharing of picks, we're trying to do so on Twitter. This person here says the Giants money line. They're already getting 6 points at New Orleans this weekend. Tommy DeVito fever. Chris Raybon, I saw you smirking a bit. I think you might like this.
Well, yeah, first of all, you and Glash need to save the bickering for marriage counseling or something, because that was a lot. But as far as the Giants money line, I'm not going to say mixing the water at all, because first of all, anytime you have a spread that's within 6, which is, what you get for a standard teaser, that's like, you're not really going out on a limb by saying that's, that it could go one way or the other. So Derek Carr, Dennis Allen, big letdown guys. Both of them struggle mightily as favorites. So I'm not going to say mixing the water at all. I kind of like that, actually.
Nice. Stucky, how about you?
Yeah, I think you got to mix it in water. The Giants have won 3 straight somehow, but they had 6. They got 6 turnovers against Washington, and they were playing one of the worst defenses in the NFL. They got 3 more turnovers against the Patriots. Won that game at home 10-7, with the Patriots vomiting all over themselves. And then they got, I think, 2 or 3 more turnovers against the Packers and won in the final seconds. So yeah, this is I think a tougher ask on the road against the Saints. DeVito's a good story, but he's still awful. And I would not be backing the Giants now. I mean, they just won 3 straight. I don't think they're making it 4 in New Orleans. They've been the benefit of a ton of opponent mistakes of late. So yeah, I'm actually going to say mixing the water here.
Raybon, you care to push back?
It's the Saints. I mean, do I have to say anymore? I mean, we've seen this Saints team over and over and over just vomit on themselves. So if there's any team likely to give the Giants another 3 or 4 gifts, it's the Saints. And we talked about this before, because I think you told somebody to mix in a water when Washington, when they wanted to take Giants money line against Washington. I'm like, Washington is another one of those teams. It's just certain teams just so mistake prone. And I think the Giants are at that point where they're kind of just, they're kind of on their Steelers, just getting lucky over and over. But hey, I
Well,
would
what,
never.
to be fair,
I would
though,
never
look,
tell anyone to mix in the water for fading the Saints. Put it that way.
I mean, the Saints this year, look, the Washington is the worst defense in the league, though, which helps. And they had 6 turnovers. That's like it was 6-0 turnover margin. If that happens, yeah, the Giants will win this game, I promise. But I mean, the Saints have, in fairness to the Saints this year, they've taken care of business against the teams that they should have beat. I mean, they beat the Bears by a touchdown at home. They beat the Panthers by 22. They beat the Patriots by 34. So they beat the Panthers early in the season. So they haven't really lost to a bad team this year. So yeah, and they have a much more competent defense than the Commanders. And it's in New Orleans. So I don't hate taking the points, but I don't think that the Giants are winning this game.
All right, let's go to the Commanders now, Raybon. Jack weighs in. He likes the Commanders on the money line. Similar spot. Commanders on the road in Los Angeles. For whatever that's worth. I mean, it's Los Angeles. Are they really, really fans? But they're getting 6.5 points, and Jack says Commanders money line. Does Jack need to mix in a water?
No, but I don't like it as much as the Giants money line. I think the problem with the Commanders is they've had their quarterback healthy, unlike a lot of teams. They've generally been healthy on offense, and yet they just can't find wins anymore. Like they lost to this Giants team. It's just not happening for them. So I think there's deeper issues there that at any time I can't really pinpoint exactly what the issue is. I would tend to shy away. But I don't hate. I mean, the Rams have been a little up and down as well. I think they're gonna stay on a roll though, because Cooper Kupp is finally healthy. Kyron Williams is finally healthy, and all those guys are kind of humming together. I think inserting Demarcus Robinson into that offense helps your run blocking and gives you a different type of receiver too. So I just think that Rams offense is rolling. But if Matthew Stafford throws a couple of picks and whatnot, the Commanders have the offense themselves to stay close. I mean, this Rams defense isn't. We saw them against Baltimore, right? Like the same busted coverage like 2 or 3 times. So I don't hate it, but I don't like it as much as fading the Saints.
Stuck. Commanders getting 6.5, but this fella Jack wants to take him on the money line.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep serving up waters. I'm gonna say mixing water. Bro, you say you don't know the problem with the Washington? It's their defense. It's the worst defense in the league. It is the worst defense by far since they traded their edge rusher. They have no edge rush now, and their secondary is bad. That is a deadly combination. If you throw out the Patriots game, which they won 20-17, and the Patriots are horrendous. Here are their 5 other games since they made those trades. They gave up 38 to the Eagles, 29 to the Seahawks, 45 to the Cowboys, 45 to the Dolphins. I mean, and then 31 to the Giants. The past 5 games, if you remove that Patriots game, they're giving up 37 points per game. Their last 3 opponents have gotten to 45, 45, and 31. They can't stop a nosebleed. I don't see how they get many stops against the Rams, and that offense is humming right now. Indoors, they can't. If you can't pressure Stafford and you have a bad secondary, good night. Now Washington, I think, will put up its fair share of points, but they're good. The Rams will get a couple more stops. Is basically what this comes down to. If it got to like 7, I wouldn't hate taking Washington, but there's no path for this defense. It's absolutely abysmal. And it's right now it's the worst in the league, and there's some bad defenses out there.
Yeah,
I feel like this is incorrect logic though, because if you have, let's say, a 6 to 7 point spread, like we know the standard deviation, all it takes is like one turnover or one thing to kind of go left, and now you're essentially at a tie game. So like if you're not saying, like, if you're essentially saying you think the spread should be like much higher, if you're saying you wouldn't take you have a problem with the money line, you're saying the spread should be like -10 or something, because -6, -7, that's why we tease. We know like one play either way, mathematically speaking, could swing the whole game.
I wouldn't tease them if I was not confident in them winning this game. And I love this over. So there's such less variance in this game too. I think that the Rams are just going to score at will, and I think the player more likely to make mistakes in this game is Hal, and he's more likely to take sacks, and that's the difference in this game. And he's fixed his sack issues a little bit. They've got rid of Gates at center, put in Larson, which has helped their pass protection a bit. But I don't care if Stafford turns over, they get a pick six. The Rams are just going to come right back down and score. So I want no interest in backing this Washington team to win a game with that defense. I would need a better price than what's out there right now.
Okay.
Yeah. And also the total for that one, you mentioned it's sitting at 49 currently at Bet365. Rams going coast to coast, back to coast. And obviously Sam Howell got to fix sack problems. Can't have that. How about the Chicago Bears? William tells us that his best bet, I can tell you, the best bet for week 14. I think this person's still thrown off. We're in week 15. William.
Yeah, this guy here, Tim Williams, going to mix in a comma and a period.
Yeah,
with this tweet.
Horrendous. Make your English teacher sick. So already probably needs to mix in water for the punctuation. Bears money line, DJ Moore touchdown, Justin Fields touchdown. I can tell you, I have a little more money Christmas presents. Okay, that makes sense. I interpret this as a parlay, as I'm trying to interpret all of this being strung together. The Bears, look, they had a good performance last week, beat the Lions outright. Can they keep it going, Raybon?
Yeah, they can. I think the Bears are trending up. I think what so DJ Moore touchdown actually is probably the one that would worry me the most, because I think the Browns have a lot of injuries on defense. So I think Justin Fields can make things happen, but it looks like they might be getting Denzel Ward back. So that would make it tougher on DJ Moore, but would also make it, with some of the other injuries, I think, Justin Fields running one in or maybe hitting a different receiver, that could definitely happen. They could definitely win the game, because I think the Bears defense is starting to play a little better, especially, defending a run, which is what Cleveland really wants to do if they can. So I don't mind it. I would say the DJ Moore touchdown feels a little bit chasey, especially if Denzel Ward is back. But I do like the Bears to win that one. Actually, I'd say a little tease ahead to our to the pod later. But yeah, that's gonna be my money line parlay pick.
I would think Bears. Too. I know Tim, you're gonna go to Stuck here next, but I would think like that you would want to get the 3.5 now if you want to get the Bears, because teaser protection and all those kinds of things, right, might play into that game with Cleveland, or teaser protection for the Bears, I should say.
I mean, it's just, if you're talking about just getting the hook, period. I mean,
yeah.
Anytime you're talking about a 3 versus 3.5, that's literally the most valuable half point in NFL betting. So yeah, but I'm just talking money line here. I think the Bears are a live dog, so don't mind it at all here. But I'm just, DJ Moore touchdown. That's the one that would give me a little bit of pause. And obviously he can run it too, which helps, but that one just feels a little more chasey than just kind of picking the Bears to cover, to win, Fields to do his thing. He's getting the ball every snap, so but that's how I see it.
Can we go 3 for 3 on contention, Stucky?
No, I like this. The Bears, the Browns are getting way too much love for that win last week. I was on them, but it was the perfect spot. And you had the Jags with all those injuries. And Jags on a short week. Lawrence wasn't really practicing. They were down to backup offensive linemen. They should get some back this week. They might get some defenders back. And the Browns, the Browns injuries are, they are piling up. Where do you want to start? Ford, we mentioned Ford, the running back, might not play, but offensive line, they just lost their 3rd starting offensive tackle of the year. Their center got hurt last week. Ethan Pochich, he might not play. The defensive line, you lost your starting defensive tackle, Maurice Hurst, for the year. His backup, Jordan Elliott, in concussion protocol. One of their other backup defensive linemen, Okoronkwo, he's hurt. Go to the secondary. Grant Delpit just placed on IR. Thornhill didn't play last week. We'll see if he plays. You could get Ward back, but this Bears team's playing really well. You go since week 7. Bears 1 spot ahead of the Browns in EPA per play on defense. Mobile quarterback in Fields, which is given the Browns some issues this year, because you need to have a mobile quarterback to evade that pressure. But all these injuries, you have Flacco as a statue. And he's going to be down to fourth and fifth string tackles, maybe a backup center, and you can't really run on the Bears. And this Bears D is playing really well since they signed Sweat, allowed them to get more pressure. Jalen Johnson's playing like an all-pro corner, so allowed a 26 quarterback rating against the best in the league among qualified corners. So yeah, this is, and look, this is a game with a total of 37. So just one turnover here or there is probably going to decide it. I like the Bears. I think this is a good spot to buy them. All the pressure on Cleveland here. Bears can come in here, play a little looser too. So yeah, I think the Browns are getting a bit too much love for last week's win, and this Bears team's playing really well. Offensive line coming together as well. They had a lot of injuries on that defense too. In the back end, they're healthier now across the board. Outside of Ngakoue, it doesn't really matter. So I think that the Bears are the play here. I think they're super live. This is probably a game that comes down to just nonsense at the end.
Okay, how about a throwback mix in the water comment? This fella here on Twitter says Bills to win the AFC at 40-1. That was going back 3 weeks ago. So I guess the mix in the water angle here, Raybon, is now you can get the Bills 7-1 at Bet365. It's the same bet, but the number's not as good. Do you have to mix in a water to bet the Bills now at 7-1? Meaning hold off?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we talked about this on the show. We both said we loved it. I think that was one of probably our favorite long shot that anyone's suggested in this whole show.
It's the Hall of Fame. It's right. The Hall of Fame, so, the mix in the water.
Yeah. I mean, think about it like this. How many teams are in contention for playoff spots in the AFC? I mean, everything's jumbled together. There's more than 7 teams. So betting 7-1, you could just see just back of the envelope math, how horrible that of a number that is. It's not, and you always want to bet based on value. So it doesn't matter that it was once 40-1. If you didn't get that, you didn't get that. It's all about analyzing the value now. If there was still value on 7-1, then sure, it wouldn't be a mix in the water. But I just think those are bad odds. Kind of like like most of the anytime touchdown odds that get posted. Period. They're just bad. So I just think this is a bad line.
Stuck.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. Then I talked about this on our podcast. I have Bills 50-1.
Super Bowl.
Yeah. I'm just saying at the time it was that I bought them too. Now they're 7-. I mean, they're not even 50% to get into the playoffs. So
yeah, exactly.
And then just a lot of times these markets don't have value anyway. But this is not the time to buy the Bills after beating the Chiefs. Yeah, even a little bit before beating the Chiefs. But now after that win, all the value sucked out.
Yeah, this is like an advertisement for watch the damn show. If you haven't been missing the show, mix in a water, because you guys were convinced when that was brought up just a couple of weeks ago, and now look at the Bills. Speaking of things that we don't really want to look at or watch at all, is Thursday night football. The Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders. This spread's showing the Raiders laying 3 here. Obviously, the quarterback situation in Las Vegas has you scratching your head. The one in LA, meaning the LA Chargers, is certain that it's not going to be Justin Herbert, who is out for the season. Stucky, we'll hold off on you because we know how you feel about Thursday night football. Raybon, do you have an angle here?
I don't. I'm kind of with Stucky, so I don't know how I got exempted from this. Maybe I haven't made it clear, but I also dislike betting Thursday night football. Obviously, I could talk about it, but the thing about Thursday night football is a lot of these matchups, they've tried to make better matchups, and we had a really good one, Dallas and Seattle, a couple weeks ago. They've tried, but it's still, I would prefer them not to have these divisional games on Thursday night football. I just feel like it's, certain markets care about it and really nobody else does. But I will say this, all year, we've been having all these backup quarterbacks coming in, and inevitably we get to a situation where you have a quarterback that has no business being favored. Like last week, I said it on this show.
Yep.
Mitch Trubisky has no business laying, what was it, 6, I think?
It was at the peak was 6, yeah.
Yeah, it maybe closed at like 5, but Same thing here. Aiden O'Connell has no business laying even 3. This dude, literally, they got shut out last week by the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings, bro.
And they're laying
not
3.
Even like,
Didn't
not
score.
even the Patriots or the Steelers are like a team with a reputation. And I love Brian Flores, and he's turned that defense around. But you got shut out by the Vikings at home. And weren't they coming off a bye, too? This is just, I mean, yeah. So it for me, it would be Chargers or nothing. But that's the whole thing. It's like, I don't really want to invest my hard-earned money in an Easton Stick. I've seen him play at SoFi. He's not very good either. But you can't be laying points on Aiden O'Connell, who just got shut out, and he's apparently the best option on the team, gave you the best chance to win, which is why Jimmy Garoppolo's not playing. I mean, this is a mess. This is a mess. It could get ugly for either side. And for me, in that situation, it's a stay away, or maybe you find some props or a long shot or something you like. But I don't think this is the game where you want to invest in like a median projection outcome, which is what you're doing with a side or even a total.
Yeah, I would say your handicap there, or your boisterous view of the matchup, is probably the most exciting part of this game. Stucky, I imagine you have similar sentiment. Like I said, I guess you both don't like Thursday Night Football, but Stucky's a little more stern about it. We're going to continue that here, I imagine.
Yeah, this game's unbettable. They actually the Raiders came out today and said they're probably going to bench O'Connell for either Jimmy G or Brian Hoyer. So which one? It could be Brian Hoyer versus Easton.
Why?
Stick.
Why would it be Brian Hoyer? Like, why?
That's what they
But
said.
no, I'm just saying, like, why? Like, what sense does that make? What, in no world is Brian Hoyer better than Jimmy Garoppolo? Sorry.
Yeah,
It's
but I think
Raybon, it's a mess. It's a mess. You already know the answer.
I think that they might owe Jimmy G money if he gets hurt or something.
Okay, I knew it had to be something wonky.
But
well, that too.
Don't quote me on that. But yeah, this is Week 15 Thursday Night Football between potentially Brian Hoyer and Easton Stick with 0 playoff implications. Unbettable. If it was 3.5, I'd probably bet Easton Stick. 3 is the right number. No thanks.
Okay.
Fair enough from these two. I mean,
I hope it gets to 3.5 now.
hey, the schedule's the schedule.
I'm not even gonna look. I'll never know. As long as I won't look.
All right, Stucky, Raybon, Sunday 6-pack, as Tim said. Just hit the old refresh on the browser in the command line, and you get these guys coming up right after us. Fellas, thanks for stopping by, and folks, do not think you're going to get any Chargers Raiders talk in the 6-pack. Thanks, guys.
Well, Glash, always a pleasure with those guys, especially, and the rest of the crew that we get on Happy Hour. I mean, I hate to pump these guys' tires, but that whole Bills line, like that's why you tune in. That's why you come, right? You learn something. And Nick Giffin, I know we gave him a lot of flack a week ago for Patriots Steelers. I don't care if we're right and wrong. And that's the thing about me. I don't care if I'm right or wrong. I just want to get the right answer. That's the thing about me.
And it's always not a bad idea to ask follow-up questions, which Raybon hates. Raybon historically has hated me for that. And I think Nick Giffin has come to an understanding that we're kind of like man of the people when it comes to this show. Right. Like we're just getting their thoughts, but you're right. It's not debunking the research. It's more so like, you're really going to do this. And I think Nick Giffin would agree at his core that, yeah, I feel really strongly about taking Patriots Steelers over, but Nick, you have to feel something in there. And maybe he doesn't, because he's better than us in that regard, but I can't help but feel something. I feel better about our relationship though with everybody here. I would hope so. 15 weeks into this thing. So that's good. We're all making strides. It's that time of year too. We all love each other, and holiday season, blah, blah, blah. So
yeah, you could save that. You could spare me with that. Speaking of things that are, holiday shopping, this thing's free. The free Action Network app. Make sure you download it. You can see the picks that these guys put in real time. Got the notifications on all day long to see what they're on, so then I can give them a hard time about it on the program here. Like and subscribe to Action Network's YouTube page. And once again, Happy Hour is presented by Bet365. For all the wonderful people we had on today, and for Brandon Glasheen, I'm Tim Kalinowski. Thank you for tuning in to Happy Hour.